Hello everyone and welcome to this FlyByWire A32nx beginner tutorial series where we are starting all over again. I've decided to make this series aimed at the beginner to the A32nx as I find I'm still getting a lot of questions regarding the setup, the installation, the operation of the autopilot, the flight pad, etc. And seeing as though this aircraft has been updated so many times since my previous videos, I thought a new tutorial series will go a long way in helping the beginner Airbus pilot. We'll break it down into a series of episodes covering the installation, then setting up the aircraft, and then covering the different phases of flight. It will be about 3 episodes, but it's just going to be a basic tutorial series, just covering what we need to do in order to complete a flight. We'll just cover the basics of setting up the MCDU, using the autopilot, just enough to get us from our departure to our destination. If you haven't got the A32nx, it's a fantastic add-on. It is completely free. It is a community built and maintained project aiming to provide high quality and detailed aircraft for Microsoft Flight Simulator. As you can see here in front of me, we are on the FlyByWireSim.com website. That's where you need to start. Head on over there, go down to where it says custom built installer and download it. Once you have downloaded it, open it up, install the installer. If it's your first time using the installer, head on over to the settings in the bottom left hand corner, go to download, and your install directory, point it to your Microsoft Flight Simulator community folder. Mine is different than the standard location of the community folder, so just point yours to where your community folder is for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Once you've done that, you can download the aircraft, and on the main page you will see something like this. Make sure the simulator is not running. Every time you would like to fly, just open up the installer and check for any updates, and over here you can choose your version you would like to fly. Stable, development, and experimental. And you can switch between the versions here in the bottom right hand corner. I'm currently on the experimental version. This is the one I usually like to fly. I don't really have any problems with the experimental version. If there's any updates available for the FlyByWire A32nx, it will show in the bottom right hand corner here. It will say update, and then you just click on the update button and it will update your aircraft. This is by far the best way to keep your A32nx updated, to keep it installed. You don't have to worry about downloading any files and sticking them in any folders, etc. This does everything for you automatically. Right, now that you have the A32nx, the very next step is to get yourself set up with a SimBrief account and get the profile for the FlyByWire A32nx aircraft into your fleet of aircraft inside SimBrief. So head on over to simbrief.com. If you haven't already registered yourself an account, do so. It's also free of charge. If you don't have a Navigraph account, your AirAC will be outdated by 1 or 2 months, but that's not really an issue. After registering your account, you need the A32nx airframe profile in your fleet of aircraft inside SimBrief, and that you can get back on over at the FlyByWire website. So if we go back to FlyByWireSim.com, you head on to documentation, support, installation guide, head on all the way to the bottom here, and you'll see SimBrief airframe. Click on SimBrief airframe link, and it'll link you back to SimBrief where you can save the FlyByWire A32nx airframe. Save aircraft at the bottom, and it will be added to your fleet of aircraft for selection when you are setting up your flight plan inside of SimBrief. With that done, we are ready to set up our flight. So we can go to dispatch, new flights, flight planning tutorial video on my channel if you would like to go and check that out, where we do cover SimBrief. But for today, let's go ahead and just do the basics. So our flight for today is going to be a Eurowings flight from Manchester to Dusseldorf. So our airline, Eurowings, is Echo Whiskey Golf. Our flight number is 9341. Our departure is Echo Golf Charlie Charlie. Our arrival is Echo Delta Delta Lima. Our alternates in case of bad weather at our arrival is going to be Echo Hotel Alpha Mike, which is Amsterdam. Departure date, departure time, we can leave standard. Our airframe, we're going to choose the A32nx profile that we downloaded from the website and saved in our fleet of aircraft. Just going to change our flight level to flight level 330, as SimBrief sometimes gives us a flight level that's a bit higher or a bit lower. This is going to be our route: Sandbar, Honolulu, Redver, Papa Alpha Mike. Okay, so here is our flight from Manchester down across the channel over Amsterdam to Dusseldorf, and alternate is back to Amsterdam. Right, with that set up, that's all we really need. We're going to generate this flight plan, select yes, we give it a few seconds, And once that's done, we can head on over to the sim. Print, view PDF. And this is our operational flight plan that we've just set up. So this we can be able to access now from the FlyByWire A32nx flight pad once we have connected our A32nx to our sim brief profile. So we will just save this for now, and then we will pull it up inside of the sim and we will go through it. Alright, once we're inside of the sim, the first thing you want to do is go on over to options, general options, go to accessibility, and make sure cockpit interaction system is set to legacy. That way you'll get the up and down arrows to push and pull on the autopilot inside of the A32nx. With that done, let's go and set up our flight. So world map, let's select our aircraft. So aircraft selection, we can go to airliners, FlyByWire simulations, A320neo. Liveries, let's look for our Eurowings livery. There it is. Okay, departure airport, Manchester, Echo Golf Charlie Charlie. Select it. Let's zoom to details. We'll pick a parking spot. We'll go gate 43. Gate 43. Okay, we do not select an arrival airport. We do not use the Microsoft Flight Simulator flight planning software inside of the sim when we're flying the A32nx. We only select our departure airport, our departure gate. The rest we do inside of the MCDU. And with that, let's just see if I've got live weather. Yes, okay, all good. With that, we are ready to fly. Alright, so here we are inside of the A32nx for the very first time for some of you. It is completely powered down, cold and dark. First thing you want to do to set up your SimBrief account is head on over to the flight pad. Just click on it to power it up. Yeah, it says SimBrief data not yet loaded. You need to connect your SimBrief account to the A32nx. So go down to settings, go to ATSU AOC, and here right at the bottom where it says SimBrief username / pilot's ID, stick in your username or your pilot's ID. You can get that under the account page on the SimBrief website. Don't bother using my pilot's ID, otherwise you're just going to be pulling up my flight plans. Another important step before your first flight is go to Sim Options, Throttle Detents, and calibrate your throttle. Make sure you calibrate each detent according to your throttle. So you'll start idle, put your throttle lever to idle on your joystick, and click Set from Throttle. Then move to the Climb Detent, move the throttle up to in between where those lines are. Make sure it goes green and you go Set from Throttle. Then the same with the Flex, move it up to the Flex Detent, and then you can go Set from Throttle. And then the Toga Descent, same thing, all the way full forward, and you go Set from Throttle. And then you can save and apply. While you're here at the settings page, you can go through each of the aircraft options and set it up according to your preferences. I've already done mine, so you're going to set up everything according to how you like it. Your realism, your ADOS, align time, your boarding time, checklists, etc. Once you've done that, then you can go back to the first page and you go import SimBrief data. And if you have connected your SimBrief account correctly to the A32nx, it's going to pull up our flight that we just created inside of SimBrief. So there we have it. Echo Golf Charlie Charlie to Echo Delta Delta Lima. Alternate company route, 0 fuel weight is 57.8, cost index is 15, average winds 263 at 25 knots. Cruising altitude we selected is flight level 330, and here is our route. Runway 2, departing runway 23 left, we're going to do the Sandbar 1 Yankee departure to the first waypoint, which is Sandbar, then on to airway Uniform November 859 to the Honolulu VOR, airway Papa 155 to Sivda, and so on. And then 205 right at Dusseldorf. Here we have current METAR at our departure and our arrival. The QNH is 1019, wind speed 180 at 1 knots, temperature 16, 2.11, and Dusseldorf QNH 1018, wind speed 030 at 8 knots, temperature 21, 2.11. Second tab, here's the operational flight plan. This is information that we're going to need to put into the A32nx MCDU, but it's going to be done for us, which we will see in a minute. Okay, first thing we need to do while we're still here Let's have a look at our fuel requirements. So our block fuel for this flight is going to be 5,860 kilograms. We will round that off to 5,900 kilograms. So let's load that in the flight plan. Go to ground, fuel tab, fuel required is going to be 5,900 kilograms. And we can load the fuel there. Estimated duration 3 minutes. It's going to take 3 minutes to, well, we're actually defueling because we started with more fuel than we required. Okay, while the refueling happens, let's go ahead and we can set up the rest of the flight deck. So before we supply power to the aircraft, we just want to check a few items by doing the cockpit preparation. So let's go ahead and start at the bottom here. We're going to make sure that the parking brake is on the on position. The speed brakes have been disarmed. The flaps are retracted. The weather radar is switched off. Engine master switches 1 and 2 are in the off position. Engine mode selector is set to normal, and the thrust levers are set to idle. Then over here we make sure that the landing gear lever is in the down position, and over here on the overhead panel we make sure that the wipers are in the off position. With that done, we are ready to turn on the batteries. So up on the overhead panel, over here we go battery 1 and 2 to the on position. The batteries supply very little power to the aircraft. The rest is powered by either ground power or the APU. For today at Manchester, we have ground power available here by the external power available light on. So let's go ahead and switch that on now. And now the rest of the aircraft has been powered up. Some airports or remote stands don't have external power available, so we would start the APU and power up the aircraft via the APU. Okay, external power is on. We can go ahead and turn on the crew oxygen supply. Set the ADIRS 1, 2 and 3 to nav. It sets up some of the lighting, so we'll go and turn on the overhead integral lights, nice and bright for the overhead panel. We'll arm emergency exit lights. Nav and logo lights can go on. Strobe lights can be set to auto. No smoking auto. Seatbelt signs can go on. You'd set the seatbelt signs to the on position after you have done with the refueling. Okay, cabin pressure, landing elevation set to auto. Here you can adjust the cockpit and the forward and aft cabin temperatures. Alright, on the hydraulic panel there's nothing to set up. We can turn on all the fuel pumps by extinguishing all the white lights. Okay, let's move down to the main panel. We'll turn up the brightness for all the displays. So we'll start over here on the left. We'll turn up the brightness for the primary flight display and the navigation display. Turn up the brightness for the flight control unit display and the upper display on the ECAM and the lower display on the ECAM. Then the first officer's navigation display and primary flight display. And then down here we'll turn on the integral lighting for the main panel and the pedestal, nice and bright. Okay, with that done, let's set the QNH for our current airfield. We'll go back to the main page here. QNH is 1019, so we'll set that on the display here. That is the cockpit preparation complete. Let's do the cockpit preparation checklist. Gear pins and covers removed. Fuel quantity, we have 5,900 kilograms. Seatbelt signs on. ADIRS are set to nav and Barrow set 1019. And that is the cockpit preparation checklist complete. Right, with that done, we can move on to setting up the MCDU. Turn up that a little bit. Okay, first thing you want to do, head on over to ATSU, go to AOC menu, init data request. Now this is going to pull up the information from SimBrief and it's going to stick it into our MCDU by populating the information for these orange boxes. So we go init data request, give it a couple of seconds. Here is our call sign, Eurowings 90341, departure Echo Golf Charlie Charlie, destination Echo Delta Delta Lima, fuel on board 5.9 tons, estimated time on route 1 hour 10 minutes. Okay, let's go back. Let's do the weight and balance while we are here. So operational flight plan request, send. There we have 147 passengers for today's flight, and let's start the boarding. Okay, we can hear some boarding sounds in the background. With that done, we can start setting up the information in the MCDU. So we're going to use our acronym diff strip, which is data, init A, flight plan, secondary flight plan, rad nav, init B, and performance. Okay, so data, there's nothing that we need to fill in over here. So init A is our first page. We'll go init request because we're going to pull up the information from SimBrief. Instead of pulling this all in manually, it's going to be done automatically for us. So again, from Echo Golf Charlie Charlie to Echo Delta Delta Lima, alternate Echo Hotel Alpha Mike, which is Amsterdam, our flight number, our cost index, our cruise flight level, and our cruise flight level temperature of minus 50 degrees. After init A is flight plan. So here is our flight plan from Echo Golf Charlie Charlie to Sandbar, Honolulu, and so on. Let's stick in our departure. Now for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to use the one that's been supplied for us by SimBrief. So if we go to our flight plan and we have a look at our route, we got departing 23 left, and we're going to use the Sandbar 1 Yankee departure. Now if you're flying on LAN, you're going to be given your departure via the ATC or air traffic controller, or if the winds are different to what you had when you were setting up your flight plan, you might be using a different runway. Now I use Navigraph for my charts. It does require a subscription, but it's a fantastic piece of software. It is definitely worth having for your sim flying. It also connects to SimBrief. So let me pull it up and open up our SimBrief flight plan. Okay, so we got flights, new flight from SimBrief, and it's going to pull up our latest SimBrief flight. Okay, there we have it. Runway 23 left, Sandbar 1 Yankee, Sandbar, and so on.
Cabin crew, I'd like to take this time to welcome you aboard our flight. We're just wrapping up some paperwork up front here and waiting to see final numbers from the ground crew, then we'll be on our way. Flight attendants will be coming through the cabin shortly with a very important safety briefing. We do ask that you give them your full, undivided attention as they review the safety operations of this Airbus aircraft. We do appreciate your business having you aboard this flight. If there's anything we do to make your flight any more enjoyable, please don't hesitate to ask. Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard. Sorry about that. My post office is interrupting me with these announcements. Okay, so we've got Sandbar 1 Yankee. Let's have a look at the chart. It's going to be a departure of runway 23 left. We're going to do a slight right turn, then a left turn climbing to 5,000 feet by Sandbar. Okay, transition altitude 5,000 feet. We will brief this departure in the next episode when we're getting ready for takeoff. But for now, let's just stick it into the MCDU. So Sandbar 1 Yankee. Okay, back to the MCDU. Echo Golf Charlie Charlie. The departure is going to be runway 23 left, and it's going to be a Sandbar 1 Yankee departure. Select that and insert. Okay, let's have a look and make sure that all looks correct. So we go to plan on the navigation display. There you can see the departure. So slight right turn, left turn, climbing to, let's stick constraints on, so we can see the altitude restrictions. So right turn, left turn, climbing Tabli, Honolulu 58 at above 3,000 to Sandbar at flight level 050. Now we can see we have a discontinuity in the flight plan. So we'll clear that out by going clear, and clearing out the flight plan discontinuity, and there joins the flight plan up again. Okay, looking good. While we're up here, let's go ahead and set our first altitude restriction, which is 5,000 feet. Constraints are on that side. We'll put it on that side as well. Okay, after flight plan, back onto the MCDU. We have S for secondary flight plan. This is not yet implemented inside of the FlyByWire A32nx. So we move on to R for rad nav. Radio navigation. On this page, what we can do is set in any VOR or ADF frequencies and courses for reference on the navigation display. So for our departure, if I bring back that chart again, we have Sandbar 1 Yankee departure. We're using the Manchester VOR and the Honolulu VOR 113.65. So if we put these frequencies into the RadNav page and turn on the displays on the navigation display, we'll get arrows pointing towards these VORs that we can use for reference. So we can go Manchester 113.55, stick that in the VOR 1 frequency, and 113.65 for Honolulu. So there we see Mark Charlie Tango, and 113.65 will be Hotel Oscar November. That will be that frequency for And then over here on the flight control unit, we can turn on VRR1 and VRR2 displays. And there those arrows will point to in the direction of the VRRs. That's the MCDU. With the RadNav page finished, we go back to I for init. This time it's B. So you see we have the left and right arrows on the top there. That means there's more pages. So the init B page is the second page. Our block fuel for this flight, as we said, is 5.9 tons. That's what we filled in. That's what we refueled with. And there you can see that fuel on board there as well, 5.9 tons. Okay, our zero fuel weight, we're going to double select the line select key, which is 57.8. That is correct according to our operational flight plan. Let's go look at our weights here. There we go, zero fuel weight 57.8. Okay, so we have 147 passengers, payload of 15.3 tons, 5.9 tons of fuel. Our takeoff weight is going to be 63.4, and our landing weight is going to be 60.8. Over here, let's go all the way back up to the top and look for our average wind component for this flight is plus 19. So we have a tailwind of 19 knots, plus 19. And if I stick that in the trip wind, it's going to bring our flight time down by a couple of minutes. It went from 1 hour 14 minutes to 1 hour 11 minutes. And that is our init B page complete. After that is P for performance. And takeoff runway 23 left. Transition altitude 5,000 feet. That is correct according to the charts. Flaps, we're going to be doing a flaps 1 departure. Our V speeds are going to populate for us. Double select the line select key. 130 for V1. 131 V rotates. And 135 V2. And with that, that is the MCDU setup complete. A couple of things we want to do before we get ready for pushback and startup is let's go back to the overhead panel and start up the APU. So we're going to turn on the beacon light. APU master switch can go on. Give it 3 seconds. Start the APU. Once the APU is available, the green available light will come on and we can disconnect from the ground power. While we're waiting for that, let's do our before start checklist. So, parking brake is set. Takeoff speeds, we have V1 130, V rotate 131, and V2 135. Windows are closed and beacon light is on, and that is the before start checklist complete. Okay, APU is still starting up. We need to plan our pushback, so I'm going to bring up the charts again, and we're going to have a look at the ground chart for where we are parked, so we can see which direction we need to be pushing back. So we're going to airport chart, zoom in a little bit. So we're parked here at the terminal, so we're going to push backwards with our tail to the north, nose facing south. So tail left, nose right. That's going to be our pushback direction. So I use toolbar pushback, pre-planned pushback. Let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. So that's our direction. So we're going to push back to about there. That should be good. APU is now available, so we can turn on the APU bleed. We can disconnect the external power. Let's go ahead and request pushback.
Cockpit to ground. Cockpit to ground. This is ground. Cockpit to ground. Stand by. This is ground. Stand by. This is ground. Stand by.
During the pushback, we're going to start our APA engines. We're going to release the parking brake. Once we are rolling backwards, we're going to push the ignition mode selector to ignition start. We're going to start engine number 2. Once engine number 2 is started up and stable, we're going to start engine number 1.
Okay, sir. The bypass pin is installed. All doors and hatches closed and all ground equipment is removed. The parking brakes are set. You may lift. Parking brake set. Lifting the aircraft. We are cleared for start and push. Okay, cleared for push start. Please release parking brake.
Going to release the parking brake.
Parking brakes are released.
So we're flying offline. Let's just
Push back. You can start the engine.
set ourselves some arbitrary
We will
squawk
start in
code for now.
sequence.
We'll normally get that during our departure clearance. Pushback started. Let's go ignition mode selector to ignition start, and engine number 2 starts. We have N2 rising. We have N1 rising. Here we have EGT rising. Okay, we have a good engine start for number 2. Almost available. There we go, engine 2 available. Let's start engine number 1.
Okay, pushback completed. Please set your parking brake.
Parking brake set.
Parking brake set. Lowering aircraft.
Ground. You may disconnect.
Roger. Good engine start. Clear to disconnect. See you at the side. Have a good flight.
Holding position waiting for the visual. Thank you and goodbye.
Engine number 1 starting up nicely. Both engines are available, so we can do the after start flow. So we're going to set the engine mode selector to the normal position and set flaps to 1 and arm the spoilers. Go up to the overhead panel. We're going to turn off the APU bleed and turn off the APU master switch. Anti-ice would turn on if it was required, but it's not required for today. Pitch trim, we need to set our pitch trim. Let's first set our auto brake to max, and our pitch trim, we have a zero fuel weight of 24.3, and then according to my checklist that gives me a pitch trim of 2 up. So set the pitch trim to 2 up. Rudder trim is neutral. Okay, let's do the after start checklist. After start checklist. Anti-ice not required. ECAM status, push status on ECAM page, normal. ECAM status normal. Pitch trim we have set 2 up and rudder trim is neutral, and that is the after start checklist complete. And that's going to bring us to the end of episode 1 of today's beginner tutorial series on the FlyByWire A32nx. We've set up the aircraft for a flight from Manchester to Dusseldorf. Hope this very basic tutorial will help you guys in doing your first flights in the A32nx. Make sure you join us for episode 2 where we're going to continue out with the taxi, the departure and the climb to cruise. If you found value in this video, then smash that like button and hit subscribe. It really helps us out. If you have any questions regarding this aircraft, please leave it in the comments below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. We will see you in episode 2. Thanks for watching.